You're listening to The World at 8 with Lynne Mozart. The World at 8, the number one in nationalist news.
Headlines today, the 17th of August. Radicalised Muslim Brits out to help rebels in Syria. Left-wing officials call for easier tourist visas for the Chinese. Conflicting reports on the meltdown in Greece in the UK. Nick Griffin MEP on the road from Leicester. Iraqis killing Iraqis. Does sectarian violence ever stop? Taliban murders 22 Shiites in Pakistan. Thought for the day, the enemy within. And finally, Shitterton or Scratchy Bottom. UK news. The so-called rebellion in Syria has seen many foreigners join the ranks of the Muslim jihadist extremists. These are mainly British and American Muslims of Syrian descent who are fighting with their brothers against President Assad. A pattern apparently seen in Libya in the late stage. Lately, however, there is another force joining the Arab Spring that are even more dangerous. These are the British Muslims aligned with Al-Qaeda who have been living and radicalised in Britain and are said to be heading for Syria. Reports say that government ministers are in discussions about these unofficial terrorists. A World at 8 reporter comments, "That seems fine, just talk about it and then hand over an extra £5 million to fund the bastards. A double standard here, I believe." Left-wing ministers are calling for tourist visas to be made easier to obtain for Chinese tourists. Some have gone as far as to say they could help with the economy in London. But a surprising person has fought them. Theresa May, the Home Secretary, has warned that national security could be threatened and criminals would be entering the country should checks on the Chinese be relaxed. A World at 8 writer has stated, "For once she is absolutely right. We are not talking about a handful of smiling tourists who hand over large wads of cash to the Brits. We're talking organised crime and prostitution coming into our country and money leaving our country." There are conflicting reports on the meltdown in Greece and what would happen if Greece was forced to leave the EU. The first one is a daunting £100 billion bill for the UK if Greece quits the Eurozone, and another which states that if Greece had kept the drachma it would not have run up the tremendous debts it has, and the markets would have stepped in to help 3 years ago. A World at 8 writer comments, "I truly believe the Eurozone to be rather like a credit card company. Run up all you like, then when it is too late, start panicking." Ireland is another country that has been blackmailed into staying. In 1992, when we left the exchange rate mechanism, John Major foretold mayhem. In fact, it led to an economic boom. I rest my case. Now I give you a report produced on the road home from Leicester from our chairman, Nick Griffin, MEP.
As the Euro crisis rumbles on, the real news out of Europe this week is the news that the controlled media don't want you to know about. Some of the most serious rioting France has seen for years was described by a Hungarian news channel as being close to civil war, as it saw 16 police officers seriously injured in the northern French city of Amiens. The city, heavily shelled during the First World War, saw its buildings going up in flames once again as North African Muslim rioters, coyly described merely as youths in the few low-key reports we were allowed to hear, fired shotguns and powerful rockets at police during the 2 nights of violence. Innocent French drivers were dragged from cars which were then set alight together with a school and a newly built community centre. Riot police all over France are on standby for copycat outbreaks this weekend, although so far there have only been sporadic car burnings in a number of other cities. Here in Britain too, I keep getting reports from various places, including Burnley, Oldham and Birmingham, of heightened tensions and a general feeling that it's all going to kick off again soon. Perhaps it would already have done so had it not been for the appalling weather this summer. That's not to say that I want it, any more than the weatherman wants it to rain when he says that tomorrow it's going to be wet once again. Still less do weathermen or nationalists cause the rain or the rioting by getting advance notice of it. But whenever the real trouble kicks off, you can bet your life that the BBC and all the other left liberals will queue up to display their bizarre and primitive belief in this modern version of sympathetic magic. Back in the real world, my main work this week has been putting the finishing touches to my in-depth expose of the sinister forces manipulating and exploiting the generally decent and sincere members of the English Defence League. As I hope you'll see, the actual document is over 40 A4 pages long. but the gist of the story is easily told. There is a huge, well-financed hydra pushing Britain and indeed the entire Western world towards war with Iran and perpetual conflict. Its creators are the gophers of giant multinational corporations which make huge profits from war and destruction, together with Zionist fundamentalists every bit as crazy as their Mad Mullah Islamist counterparts. The EDL is only one small head on the hydra, but the hows and whos of its creation give a fascinating real-life case study of how warmongers work their dogs to herd the sheeple to war. It is, of course, a very old story, but since it's our sons and our taxes they want to take this time, it's very much an issue for our times and for us. So it's great to see so many very thoughtful and appreciative comments about my expose already on our website. I always read the posts beneath particularly important articles, not only to keep my finger on the party pulse, but also because the posting threads play an important role in the ideological education process, helping to turn newcomers who first approach us over some simple populist reaction to one of the many grotesque injustices to our people into fully fledged nationalists. It's a process that we need to do more to help, in particular with more coverage on our site of wider issues, such as exposing the corporate privatisation ripoff and more about positive nationalist solutions to the economic and social collapses of today's broken Britain. In the meantime, though, my thanks to all our regular comment posters. I did just have a look at our site with a view to mentioning a few of them by way of thanks, but the list of those who make regular, insightful contributions is so long that it's not really on, and it's a bit unfair to pick out just a handful when so many do so much to make our site interactive and a place where people exchange ideas and also make friends. So my thanks to all concerned. You know who you are, and now you know for sure that your work is appreciated. I'll not take up any more of your time telling you about what's in my study of what lies behind the EDL, because I hope you'll make the time to read it for yourself. It's the biggest block of research and writing I've done since doing the editions and editing for the English version of Philip de Winter's excellent book about the menace of Islamic expansionism, Inshallah. While my study of neocon and Zionist warmongering is available online for free, Philip's book about the Muslim threat to our homeland and traditional freedoms is for sale as a full-length book, and it's worth every penny of the tenner it costs. So if you're not one of the many listeners who've already found out what a great read it is, I hope you'll take a look at the Excalibur website and buy yourself a copy today. It really is a tremendously important work and will give you the facts you need to demolish any left-wing Islamophile you might happen to have an argument with. It's always fun tanning their hides in debate. Both studies, needless to say, are too inconveniently true to be covered in the controlled media. So I ask you to do everything you can online to spread awareness of them. Knowledge may not actually be power, but it's the first step on the road to power. Happy reading.
Thank you, Nick, for your usual insightful contribution, and I hope that all our listeners read the EDL expose. As you say, knowledge is power. World news. Iraq has seen a day of bomb attacks are killing the largest number of Iraqi civilians in one wave. Insurgents and Islamic groups launched an unmerciful attack on people in an amusement park and other places across Baghdad. More than 24 innocent women and children were killed in the attacks, killing a total of 100 civilians in all. A spokesperson commented, "We must remember these are not the British or American troops doing this. It is their own people of their own religion inflicting this terror." 22 Shiite Muslims have been murdered by Pakistani Taliban members in Pakistan. The attack that took place in a remote area when the Pakistani Taliban gunmen pulled the Shiites off a bus and gunned them down. One spokesperson commented, "This is what the Pakistani Taliban are doing to religious minorities in their country. Once they become the majority of where they live, no one else is allowed to live near them." Thought for the day: the enemy in our midst. Well, as we heard in Nick's report, there is violence spreading throughout Europe and the UK, and the cause? Well, my listeners are not stupid or sheeple, so they know it is the massive immigration of several differing cultures to countries of usually one culture and a totally different one at that. I'm not a white supremacist. I do not believe having a white skin makes one superior, although one has to admit that most of the great inventions and progress of the world in general have been from that source. I welcome different cultures and colours, but I welcome them more in their own countries than in mine, simples. To make my point today on the ongoing effect of allowing mainly African and sub-Saharan immigrants into this small island, voodoo, rooted mainly in African and Caribbean soils, and extremist Islam is over here and has been flourishing for some time. Mainly because if you are a person of colour, either the social workers are the same colour, or if white are afraid to tackle ethnically different people for fear of the racist tag, which will see you without a job or a pension pretty damn quick. So it has grown, and it is a nasty, nasty form of child abuse and murder, to say nothing of the poor animals that go the same way. But we're dealing with child murderers here, not harmless old women cooking up frogs' legs and being generally short of a bulb or two. Voodoo is a horrible, ignorant and spreading disease because every day people who practice it are coming into this country unchecked and unheeded. Take the case of the trunk of a small boy found in the Thames some years ago. It took months to identify him and to admit the poor little scrap had been brought over here for just that purpose, ritual killing. Another more recent case in 2010 centred on a respectable black couple. She worked at M&S and he drove a Mercedes and coached local lads in football. Firstly, how come she got a job when hundreds of Brits can't and he drove a Mercedes? But never mind. They practised voodoo and on our Christmas Day celebrations they tortured and murdered a teenage boy of 15 because they thought he was a witch. To get rid of his demons, they attacked the boy, Christy Bamu, with knives, sticks, metal bars, a hammer, pliers and a chisel until he begged to die. After 3 days of this treatment he was put in a bath to get rid of the blood and almost dead he slid under the water and drowned. Now we tell some tales of Islamist extremism and possession in the UK. 9 days before Christie's murder, Shema Ali disemboweled her 4-year-old daughter because she believed she was possessed by a spirit referred to in the Koran. She had even removed the eyes from the child's toys to prevent them seeing her evil deeds. Last month, Mohammed Tosif Mumtaz and the 3 family members were found guilty of murdering his pregnant 21-year-old wife because, yes, she was possessed by evil spirits. And just this week a couple from Nigeria were found guilty of abusing their children for 10 years because they were, possessed. The kids were only rescued because the eldest daughter threw a note onto the street asking for help. So these wicked, stupid parasites are in our country. They are in our councils, in our schools and in our streets. Minister Tim Lawton, Children's Minister and General Idiot, who spoke at the CROP conference, which stands for the Coalition for the Removal of Pimping, and tackled absolutely nothing, is quoted as saying there has been a wall of silence around such abuse. Well yes, Tim, put that with the wall of silence around Muslim underage sexual grooming and we have a double bubble here. Both crimes involve people not indigenous to our country or culture. Whichever way you approach it, they are people of a different colour and religion to me for one. Any government, and I include past governments as well, who encourage massive immigration on an unprecedented scale of the world's general mess-ups and throw-ups, regardless of their input into whatever society they care not to integrate into, is asking for it, even from our sheeple. Even our sheeple are now seeing the light, although it is very dim and usually much unreported. One of the cases of foot and mouth, no, not me my friends, my case is foot in mouth, was unreportedly caused by the importation of bushmeat for our African and Caribbean enrichers. They are the ones indulging in ghastly practices of importing live beasts to sell or kill and are up to their eyes in sports like dog fighting and worse. Why do they come here? Voodoo, killing of endangered species, torture of children, child rape and abuse, bushmeat and worse are all accepted in their countries, so why emigrate? Because, owing to soft-touch multicultural UK, they also get paid for doing so. In their own countries they will probably have to work to earn. Here they just turn up and sign away to receive more money than keeps an African village going. What is that awful joke about a well being needed in a small village in Africa and they have to walk 25 miles to get water each day and the reporter says why not dig one? Well, you have your answer. Come to the UK and Europe and water on tap. Ha ha. People cannot understand why we English seem to take on the part of hostess with the mostest when it comes to our colonisers. We build their sodding religious edifices. We give them their own shops and in most cases their own towns. We educate their uneducatable and allow them to hold back our own children. We eat their bloody awful food, and we even accommodate supplying most of our meat chain with their halal killed meat, which I would state is totally tasteless, and I personally like blood with my meat. We go overboard with the sodding Olympics praise and elevate one black Muslim way past other white people who did better, and arse-lick just about every bloody mongrel we can find, not too difficult a task in modern day broken Britain. So back to voodoo and possession. I'm not surprised at these cases, and probably many more unreported, because of people simply not talking or the fear of upsetting these communities, most of which seem to be centred around Newham and the Tower Hamlets. Well, you wouldn't have guessed that, would you? But are the authorities doing what they should? When found out, these people, and I mean entire families if necessary, should not be tried here. They should be deported back to their country of origin. It is pretty clear even to a liberal lefty where they come from. Part and parcel, no appeals, no reporting, just gone. End of that problem. We should not suffer a witch to live either. It's in our Bible. And I believe in voodoo and black magic, my friends. I believe in good and evil, God and the devil. They exist, and the people that bring that form of evil into our country should be deported immediately. If we white colonisers had committed a quarter of these crimes in their countries, we would have been killed, and rightly so. The people that think their own are possessed are usually possessed themselves. I hope the worm turns in good time before many more children die or are hopelessly abused, leaving permanently damaged beings incapable of thought or deed and on our benefit system and health care to boot. And finally, it is official. The most embarrassing place to live in Britain is Shitterton. Residents of the village in Dorset are bracing themselves for more toilet humour after it came top of the official poll of places with the most embarrassing names. Shitterton, which lies in Dorset's Piddle Valley, has been called the village that dare not speak its name. The village beat Scratchy Bottom, also in Dorset, and Brokenwind in Aberdeenshire to top the list of places with the most unfortunate names in the UK. Dorset can boast 3 of the top 10, with Happy Snoring coming in 10th on the table, which came as a result of polling 1,773 people. Crapstone on the edge of Dartmoor, Devon, is 4th, while Golden Balls, which is 5 miles south of Oxford, is 5th, in the survey carried out by family history website findmypast.co.uk. This presenter has just got to say it. Shitterton has been the butt of jokes for years. I just had to say it. You have been listening to The World at 8. I am Lynne Mozart, and the team of World at 8 and Radio Britain, and I wish you all a very happy and safe weekend.